Oh, do I need to switch the camera?
Hold on one second. Let me just pin this here. Here we go. Okay. All right. Uh-oh.
I'm good. I'm good.
Yes, you might. You know what? You might have to because it's still backwards.
All right. What do I do that in settings, you said?
You know, I should have sent you some of the images so you could have figured out. Because
next time we're gonna get
next
this
time.
right.
Let's do it next time.
I won't use words.
Promise. Okay. After this, I'll send you the images to tell you where it is. So basically, once you do it, it's gonna be there forever. So
see,
I'll send you the pictures. All right.
Okay.
Let's see. Okay, so tell us what we're doing today.
Squats. So we're gonna go over some like air squats, goblet squats, and back squats. So
Perfect.
I mean, you told me everybody is always scared of squats. It's bad for your knees. There are lots of rumors. So we need to dispel that because air squats especially are the single greatest exercise ever known.
Now, did you know most people don't know air squats are air squats? Meaning bodyweight squats are also called air squats.
Yeah, you're pushing against the air.
Yeah.
Yeah, so bodyweight squats though.
There was this one exercise, this is 5-6 years ago, where I saw a video of somebody jumping and squatting midair. So all they were doing was bringing their knees to their chest.
Yeah, coming up.
Midair. For some reason, that exercise on that program was titled air squats.
Oh, interesting. Well,
so in my head, for the longest time, I thought, okay, those are hard. Not doing them again.
That's
those
like
were
this,
hard.
right?
There
like
you
this?
go. Okay, show
like
off.
No, is that what you're talking about, though, right?
Yes, precisely.
Okay, yeah. So
no, that was it. All right, so air squats and bodyweight squats, and then we're going to move on to goblet and then barbell.
Yep.
Perfect. Take it away.
All right, cool. So one of the things that people always are worried about is their knees when squatting. So there was a lot of misconception a long time ago that squatting was bad for your knees. And I drew this little diagram here to explain why and kind of what happens. So as people are squatting down, right, this force that's coming down, which is your body weight, what ends up happening is when you stop halfway, you end up putting a lot of pressure onto that knee. Whereas when you squat all the way down, you put the pressure into the hip. And your hip is a much, much bigger, stronger joint than your knee. So that's where the misconception comes in, is that people were, for so often, were squatting halfway instead of going to that full depth. There is a place where squatting to parallel is absolutely fine. It's just we have to really, really be concerned about what's going on, because what this develops here is fantastic ankle flexibility, hip flexibility, and knee flexibility, which is, I mean, we really want that for longevity in life. What this does is this tends to tighten up our ankles because we can't get down, and then our hips get a little bit tighter, and thus we have referred knee pain. So if you ever want to look up any of this stuff, go to Knees Over Toes. The guy does amazing work about just how we have to start getting our knees over our toes. And what he means is like knees over toes, not knees behind the toes.
And so quick question about going down all the way. Should everyone do that?
No, and that's what I'm saying, is there are certain situations where there might already be a condition where they have knee pain, or they have hip pain, or they have really, really poor ankle mobility. So then what we would do is we would adjust as a coach. We might put something underneath their heels so that it lifts their heels up so that they can get down a little bit lower. Because the point is that going all the way down, you build your hamstrings and your quads. Stopping halfway strictly builds mostly hamstrings. Your quads are still involved, but it's more of a hamstring dominant exercise. In this, it's like a bang for your buck. You're building that and your glutes. I mean, it's like full lower body exercise, just squatting.
Now, do you think that there are ways to, like, for example, when people hear squats, right, what's the major muscle that comes to your mind? So why should you do them? Let's take the strength out of the way. we know it's a full body exercise. Just for a quick second, let's take the strength out of the way and let's just think hypertrophy. Where where do you think squats work?
It dep- so this is a tougher question because it really depends on your ankle
How you do them?
mobility, yeah, and how you do them. So if I go halfway down to here, it's going to be more of a hamstring exercise because you can see this is a simulation of almost like the top part of a deadlift. Okay.
Okay.
Whereas we come down here, now we get more quad development because that angle of the knee has retracted to such an acute angle. Now we actually have to use our quad to straighten our leg out. So you want to think of like doing a leg extension. It's that same kind of idea. You're just doing that with your body weight, and you get the hip involved too.
Mm.
So yeah, how
Now,
you do these.
okay. Now, before we do them, what is the most important thing, or what is the most important cue while they're squatting? In your opinion, the number one, if you had to pick one, what would it be?
Keep your chest up.
Okay.
To keep a more vertical chest because a lot of times what happens, especially, and this goes into goblet squats, which are held at your chest. Sometimes people hold them in between their knees, but really what we want to do is we want to have it on our chest because what that's going to do is going to
Because we want to
pull,
go down straight.
right, and it pulls you forward, but it also works as a counterbalance because if you can't go all the way down, you push that weight out a little bit, and all of a sudden you can keep your chest up, and then you can build your quads more. So that's why when I say chest up is keeping that body more vertical. This isn't bad, but we want to make sure that we're keeping our chest up as much as we can. What we don't want to do is just collapse and lean over.
Now, what about the people who have longer legs versus upper torso and are
Oh, yeah.
unable to keep their chest up?
Yeah, and that's fine. What's going to happen is they're going to end up developing more of an ankle flexibility issue. So then what you'll see is that they need a lot more ankle flexibility in order to get into that bottom position. Otherwise, they won't be able to. And that's a lot of times with taller athletes or like longer limbed athletes, that's the issue is getting down all the way is that they don't have the flexibility. You see this a lot with basketball players. They have really, really good, like they can move amazingly. But
Yeah.
because they're so tall, they've never had to actually jump or do anything super, super athletic that they have super tight ankles. Well, you got to stretch those in order to get down. But a lot of times they'll have great knees, great hips, and just can't squat all the way down because of their ankles.
Okay. All right. So
Got
with
some gears
bodyweight
turning.
squat, huh?
Got some gears turning.
Yeah, that was good. Let's get back to bodyweight squats.
Sure.
We talked about knee over toes. Now, what about knees going in or collapsing in?
Yeah. So if we're looking at it head on, right, and we're looking at this is the knee to the foot, we really, typically speaking, we don't want these to go too far in, the knees to collapse in, or the knees to flare out. Now, there are some situations with muscular development and limb length that the knees will go in and it's okay. Okay, because all that happens in that situation is your glute, your butt, it just kind of stretches a little bit. So if you think of the knees going in, it's going to stretch your butt. Some people have really good flexibility in that and they have a longer limb length in their thigh. And then that makes sense. It's really safe, like relatively speaking to anything else you're going to do. The pushing out can be a big issue, especially with your hips sometimes. So what'll happen is as you're pushing out, you're forcing those glutes to tighten, which is basically squeezing your butt. So try to squeeze your butt and squat at the same time. It's not possible.
Yeah.
Or it's very uncomfortable. And that's where issues come too, more hip issues there. But yeah, it should be almost directly over top. So you want to have everything stacked, just like everything else in weightlifting or any other sport like that.
Okay. And this might be jumping ahead a little bit, but how important is bar path during a squat?
This is actually something I wanted to touch on because bar path can be considered even if you're not using a barbell, because really what we're looking at is movement path. We're looking at where the center of gravity is. So on these ones down here, if you can see them, on this one, we're looking at the bar path where we can see that this is a compromised position right here, like we were talking about, but it's still a relatively straight bar path, right?
Yeah.
Whereas here we could see it's a straight bar path, but we're in a better position. So really what we want to be looking at is instead of looking at the bar path, take note of the shoulders and where the center of gravity is. Because we can look at it, if someone's doing a goblet squat where it's pulling them forward a little bit more and they can use that to keep themselves up, Well, now all of a sudden we're working a little bit differently.
Yeah.
So it's not truly bar path, it's center of gravity. That's why a really good coaching cue for like coaches is don't look at the person squatting up here, just stare at their feet because you can see how the weight moves on their foot and whether or not they'll release
Okay.
it forward or backwards.
Now it happens on, let's say you have an athlete that comes down and comes down straight, but when they go up, there's a little
Oh.
tilt forward. Where's
Mhm.
the issue?
So what that is that they're not using their quads. So you'll this is a big one. It's like keeping your chest up means you have to work your quads more. So people will shoot their hips back and almost do like a good morning where they get to use
Yeah.
their lower
Okay.
back, hamstrings, and butt.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
All
because
right.
people more often than not don't really have strong quads. They might have really pretty quads, like doing leg extensions a lot, but the strength comes from compressing both the knee, ankle, and the hip. Those three joints together all
Mm-hmm.
develop that entire chain.
While we're on that, other than squats, which exercise would you recommend to build strength in quads?
Oh man, besides leg extensions and squats, I'm like overhead squats.
What about leg press? If we're talking
Yeah.
about compressing,
Yeah, so you can do a leg press. I think the big thing is the angle position of the seat, right? So if
yeah,
you're always on a static seat, like you can move that foot plate either down or in, and the same thing with the actual bench you're laying on, you can move that. You want to be as similar to how you would be standing up. So sometimes it helps to like take a picture and then like turn it upside down a little bit and
yes.
see if it's the same thing. That's a really good way to line it up. But you really want to mimic how you would be as if you were to have a bar on your back and you were to squat all the way down.
All right, that's great info. I appreciate that. Let's move on to goblet squats. If you think we have covered everything with the air squats.
Yeah, I think goblet squats are a fantastic exercise, especially once you feel comfortable squatting down, right? Because when someone first comes into the gym, like the key performance indicator would be like, can you squat down to a toilet? Like, yes, okay, cool, you
Okay.
can. Can we go lower than that? Once we start going lower than that and we can handle some squatting volume, then we might add in some goblet squats, especially if they're an untrained individual, someone who hasn't been in the gym before. And what the goblet squats do is it adds a little bit of weight, but it also gives you a little bit of balance, like I was saying before. So if you're still learning how to do squats, you're not as strong in the bottom, you can use that weight to counterbalance yourself. So if you start falling forward or backwards, you
Mm.
actually have like a little lever. And what it does is it just adds weight. It also gives you a sick bicep pump, like when you're really bad at it.
I was gonna say holding that weight.
When you're
And
bad at it.
it was funny. I was working out with a buddy, and we were holding 70-pound dumbbells, not too far, not too close either. And I've never felt that type of tightness in my abs ever before.
Oh yeah, yep. So what you can do with that and the added weight actually is a really good benefit because it's still pushing you down, and you'll feel the quads more when you go all the way down into the bottom and stuff doing a goblet squat than you will with an air squat, and that's just
Okay.
because of the positioning stuff.
Yeah.
So
Now,
go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No.
Good question. When you have the weight on you, whether barbell or goblet,
Mhm.
and when you're pausing, is it beneficial to pause all the way down in the hole, or
Yep.
so pause all the way at the bottom or a little higher to give more tension to the muscles?
So normally what I would do is I would say you really want like the slower descent because like that eccentric movement moving down slow is going to tear way more muscle fibers. So a really good example of this is running up the mountain is really hard. Coming down is actually harder. It tears more fibers. So it's the same thing. What I would say, and because we want to get some kind of compression going on, because it's been shown through like scientific studies that when we have full knee and hip compression, like we hit the bottom of a squat, it's actually really good for our joints. It almost acts like a pump. And then it regards us to like, oh, we need to build more synovial fluid in this area so that this doesn't happen again and we get injured. Okay, so that's one thing aside. But I would say going slow down, hitting the bottom and then coming up and maybe pausing halfway or a quarter and then finishing all the way up would be extremely painful and also tear a lot of muscle fibers, which is the goal.
Okay. All right. Now, should people go super heavy on goblet,
Nah.
or is there a certain weight where they can progress to barbell?
Oh yeah. I mean, if someone can handle, I would say a 70-pound, like something that would be considered like closer or heavier than a barbell. So a barbell, a typical men's
Okay.
barbell is 45, 35 for female. I would say that it would be great if they could do like a 45 or a 50. You could probably put a barbell on their back. It might be a little weird at first, right? But the main thing
Yeah.
is it's not really the weight on the bar. It's how they look doing it. So I've had kids come in that are, 8 years old. They're not going to be able to do a 50-pound goblet squat.
Yeah.
But what I can see is that they can squat all the way down with control. They can stand all the way back up with control. They have very good form, or at least
With the bar
decent.
on their back.
No, just squatting. Like
Okay.
you just they come in, they just have that natural little kid like bounce to them. Like they can do anything. They have awesome flexibility and mobility. But if they have control, and that's the big thing, they have to be able to do it controlled. Okay, anyone can fall down into the bottom of a squat. We want
Yeah.
them to show control in it. If they can do that, I'm not going to give them a 35-pound barbell. I might give them a 10-pound barbell or an
Okay.
8-pound barbell. But the barbell is really a technical issue because, like I was saying, when you have that goblet squat, right, you can move that back and forth. You have a little room for error. When that bar's on your back, you have to be able to show control and be static because if you miss, you're gonna have to dump that barbell off your
Yeah.
back either like backwards, obviously. Like don't try to go over your head. That's a horrible
I
idea.
hope not. I think that's an episode right there too. Squats 102. How to put it on with the barbell. How to put the bar on
Yeah.
your back and how to take it off.
That's the second thing we teach. Like as soon as all right, cool, you did a squat, awesome. Now here's how we miss. Go down into the
Yes.
bottom again, arch your back.
Yes.
Like
Yeah. And
yeah,
it's funny that we're talking about this real quick. I have seen more people get injured getting on the bench for bench press and getting off versus actually lifting the weight.
yep,
With dumbbells mainly because they don't know how to throw the dumbbells down. They don't know how to get back up or throw them back on their chest.
yeah, yeah.
Amazing
Especially
how.
dumbbells.
Yeah. All right, moving on to barbell, the infamous barbell squats.
Yeah. So again, I think really the barbell, the good transition is from that goblet squat to those barbell squats. And all barbells do is allow you to get a really, really good mass. So let's say you're already showing really good proficiency, you're feeling good about yourself, everything's working really well. There's no reason for you to not pick up a barbell unless you just don't want to pick up a barbell. That is an okay answer. But for the most part, as long as you're proficient and can show control, the benefit is we get to add a lot more weight. You can only hold so much with a dumbbell or a
Yeah.
kettlebell. With a barbell, we can add 400 or 500 pounds. And the difference between that and a leg press is where the mass is coming from. So if you look at a leg press machine is on an angle. So everyone's always like, oh, I can leg press 1,000 pounds. And I'm like, right, because it's on a 45-degree angle on a track
Hmm.
coming up. So that weight isn't coming down on top of you.
So that's where the whole gravity against resistance comes in.
Right. So if we actually add this up with that 45-degree angle, it's going to be significantly less. It's probably going to be a lot less than you think it is.
Yeah.
But the other added benefit of doing a barbell back squat is because of this control that's needed, you get to build a lot more of those core muscles. So yeah, you're using your core and everything up top with the goblet squats and all that. But now we have a mass that's on our center of gravity, right? So if you look at me and I look forward a little bit and you go down my shoulder line, that
Hmm.
is my center of gravity. It's pushing straight down all the time. So I need to be a
Yeah.
tree trunk. Like I need to have control from like basically I usually
Strong.
say, yeah, nipples down. Like that thing has to be locked. So
Yep.
that's the other thing that you get is you can get really, really good core work without having to do any abs or any isometric holds or anything just by back squatting. And if you want to take it
Yes.
to the other step, overhead squat. Now you're getting all of it. But that's like advanced. Don't do that.
Now, while we're talking about barbell squats, how important it is for people to understand the bracing your core versus breathing.
Yeah.
I think that's one
Yeah.
thing also. I mean, I feel like for me, that would be the basic fundamental that you should know before you even do air squats.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Breathing is really, I think breathing goes largely unnoticed with trained populations. So like people like me and you that are coaches, we've done this for a long time. We understand the concept of and then holding and breathing out with that same contraction of using that diaphragm. And really what that comes from is that's your core. So when people say like, oh, we're going to build like a really strong core, the first thing they do if I say like be a strong core is they take a deep breath and they use that diaphragm. And it's the same, you're trying to build a vacuum within your body. And that's why you take that deep breath. You've pulled that air in, and now you're using that air to push on your rib cage to hold everything in place. It's like you get extra muscles just by breathing. Like it holds it because it's under pressure.
They talk about like a can, an open can versus closed can.
Yeah, exactly.
So open can will get crushed.
Yep. It's true. That's what you're doing, because when you breathe in, it's being held in by this like one little thing right here. But as you're pushing all those muscles, it's exerting a pressure back on it. I mean, using breathing bracing like is fundamental if you're going to lift any kind of weight really at all. Even with body weight stuff, it really should be used. And you see this a lot with bodybuilders. The first thing
Yep.
And then, not to mention like oxygenation, how much oxygen's available while you're lifting to put you into an aerobic or anaerobic state, shorter or faster. Like that's really important too, because I can put you at an oxygen deficit extremely quickly and then tell you to go work out. And all of a sudden you're like, my muscles don't work anymore. I'm like, yeah, because you don't have any oxygen.
Yes.
You're tired.
All right. So a little more to touch on that. When you hear, or when you're explaining to somebody who has no idea how to brace, how would you explain that to them?
Breathe in as deep as you can, close your mouth, and then flex your abs at the same time.
So would you say bracing is similar to just holding your breath?
Similar, I would say, yeah.
Okay.
What I mean though is by coaching this, like we're going down like a process. It's like breathe in, squeeze your abs. Okay, do you feel that pressure? Okay, now we're gonna do that same thing, but I don't only want you to squeeze your abs. I want you to arch your back too at the same time. Okay, cool. Do you feel like you can let go of your abs? Yeah. Oh, and you can still stay core, like your core still tight, and you've let go. Okay, awesome. So that's how we do. I do it front to back. So I'll say breathe in, flex that abs, and then eventually you're going to let go of those abs and still keep that pressure built up.
What do you think about the cue that says it goes pushing your abdominal wall out?
Yeah.
Does that apply?
Yep, absolutely. It's the same concept. You're built like people like really, really bad smokers when they have emphysema, they lean over here, right? And that's to use the physical force of gravity to move their belly down so that they can get an inhale. So it's the same concept. It's pushing your butt. Oh, okay, I feel it now. Everything's tight in my ribs and all. Yeah,
yes.
That's it.
That's good. All right. I think we covered all of it that we wanted to talk about. That was really great. Good talk. We'll go see who is still here. If you guys have any questions, please go ahead and ask. This will be posted on YouTube as well, like the first episode. So that should be online, I think, tomorrow.
Okay.
I was working on a little thing, and I think I'm going to put it in, upload it tonight. So it'll be available tomorrow. This will most likely go next week. Not next week, next week. And we'll get it rolling that way. All right. Well, Coach Aaron, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
As always.
Hope you had a great Sunday. I will see you on the next one.
All right. I'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Later, buddy.
Take care.
You too.